I respect what our brother Okia Omtata has said, but I still say we have institutions. We have the constitution that is very clear.
Because isn't it that, yeah.
But we also have corruption, and corruption has got to be fought. Now, how are we going to fight corruption? If you ask me, the only way or the best way that we can start fighting corruption is through moral formation. And that is what is lacking in this country.
Okay.
We are into technology and what have you, but very little is being done in terms of forming people morally. So that moral corruption is what we're talking about.
Yeah. Do you agree, moral corruption, because it's what perhaps we are seeing now?
I think the
kids watching, the politicians and the adults, and it's now going to them.
From where I stand, the moral side of issues and the legal side. When you look at this constitution you're talking about, I know the law gets its force from the morals that we have and whatever, but we also have the rule of law. And the law says this. The law says this. We have a very prescriptive constitution. So what I'm dealing with is not a moral problem. It's a crime and punishment issue.
Okay.
So that, to me, I don't look at corruption as a moral problem. I don't look at corruption as a breach of law, whereby people who breach the law should be punished. And people should perform the way they are supposed to perform. Because even what she's saying about that birth certificate issue and all those and there are many other things. If systems were working, sometimes conditions force some people to do it. Because like you find like what goes on like on the road, the usual example is that you could be rushing somewhere for a meeting. Instead of ticketing him, then he pays the fine later. You'll find that the policeman wants to go with your keys and you are driving less and maybe you've got other urgent things to do.
Right.
So it just becomes a question of a pragmatic solution.
So would you justify?
I'm not justifying it, I'm explaining it. What I'm trying to say is that corruption, if we take a religious approach to corruption, that's when we are having war on corruption. But when we need to take the legal issue is the war on the corrupt. Those who have been found to have breached the law.
Right,
what he's talking about is the war on corruption, is the morality thing and what have you. That's the war on corruption, and I'm telling you, it is being fought effectively in churches, in mosques, wherever you go, people are preaching against it, politicians talk against it. But punishing those who breach the law is what I want to see happen.
There is a lot of talk, yes, but it hasn't touched the soul. It hasn't touched the heart. So there's a lot that has been written about corruption. There's a lot of talk about corruption. Actually, if we were to go by what has been said and what has been written, if we were just to go by that, there would be no corruption in this country.
But what he's saying, and as far as the leadership, especially the big fish, as we like to call them, or mega corruption and those involved, that if we got to a place where we are seeing people behind bars and they're being prosecuted, won't then that message, that would be now the powerful message, as opposed to words, as you're saying, they don't seem to be working. Would that be then a powerful message that would sink and penetrate now to the ordinary Mwananchi, perhaps?
I wouldn't deal with only the big fish. Behind every big fish, we have the small fishes. And in the recent time, in the recent past, we have seen things coming up to light, you know. So I wouldn't just deal with the big fish. I would deal with everyone who is corrupt. Both the corrupter and the corruptee. Yeah.
So for you, is there big corruption and small corruption? Do you see it that way?
I'm looking at it in terms of taxpayers' money, not in terms of going to heaven or going to hell.
Okay.
I'm looking at it in terms of taxpayers' money. And I think that taxpayers' money is sacred. And anybody who touches taxpayers' money should be extinguished.
So what is making us not to do that? Because we have seen the president in his merit would argue for himself and say, didn't I sack 5 of my ministers?
But the president is the godfather of corruption. The man is so corrupt himself. You have seen what he has done with the standard gauge railway.
That's an allegation.
It's an allegation and it's a serious one.
Yes.
The president took the entire cabinet, stood up and said the railway will be built, come sunshine, come rain. And yet the railway, they are stealing 46 billion shillings. So when
what evidence do you have? I'm trying to avoid a situation where you make allegations you can't substantiate.
I thought that I can't substantiate. I have my matter in court which has been sat on for over a year.
It has yet not been.
Yeah, They look at what happened with Waiguru. Who was defending Waiguru? It's not the president. So let us not talk that the president is talking. What I want to see is people being punished.
Okay, so why are they not being punished?
Because the godfathers are protecting them.
All right.
I think if we become too emotional about this, that is where we'll remain. And many people have been emotional for a long period of time. It's time that we became objective. It's time that we called things by their right names. It's time that we concerted efforts, looked at the common enemy, and found out ways about how to deal with them. If you ask me, I wouldn't really waste time making allegations that I cannot substantiate, so I wouldn't want to take that direction. But the issue that we're dealing with here is corruption. Is it there or is it not? Of what magnitude is it in this country? What are the consequences? What effects is it having on us? Let's look at what is happening in our own homes. A father buys exam papers for his own sons. So what type of leader would you expect that child, that boy or that girl to be tomorrow? If his own father has, and he knows that the father has done it. You see where we are? So before we get up there, personally, this is what I feel we need to start here. And I think that the church, the government has got to bring all the stakeholders together in this. The government may not have the capacity to deal with it, but I believe that if we were sober about it and the government brought people onto board who matter, for example, the religious organizations, would be able to move somewhere.
And we saw the president at State House, come with this group or task force which had the private sector. I believe there were some religious members of this particular group. There are those who would argue they feel like everything we're still not moving. We're still seeing more and more stories. So would you say Kenya is more corrupt today than it was, say, 5 years ago? Is it more corruption we're witnessing, or is it that it's being discussed or it's being covered by the media more?
Well, I'm not competent to answer your question. The only thing I know is that there's a lot of license. Corruption pays. Corruption pays, and the example she's giving of people stealing exam papers, if you are in a situation where everybody is stealing exam papers and they go ahead in life and they get on, you'll be a fool not to steal exam papers. So what should be happening is there should be consequences to stealing exam papers. If stealing exam papers assures you a good life, then the corruption pays. What we are saying that if corruption could not pay, if we make corruption expensive, then I think this country will move forward. But the cost of corruption on us is so high, and it's all a question of the rule of law. We ignore the law. We have refused to obey the law, and that's where we are. So to me, if we just took up the law and followed it up, in fact, even these exotic things like anti-corruption commission, that's an exotic aberration. Me, this is a police work. Get a serious fraud office dealing with it and let these people be dealt with. You go to anti-corruption, I've gone there to record a statement. You are entertained. You are given meals. You are given all these things. You are given all that thing. So it's just like something that is there. You remember when these commissions were formed, at what time were they formed in our history? And then they were formed in all the third world like an experiment. So why do we have a police force? And why do we have an anti-corruption commission? Then there's something else that is steering committee and whatever. All these things are supposed to make us feel that something is being done when really nothing is being done.
Right.
To me, I would rather that the Kenya police be given the mandate to deal with these people, and we hold the police accountable and say we have not prosecuted these people. And I think that if the police is given a free hand to be able to arrest and prosecute anybody in this country, the way we have been trying to fight for police reform so that the police can be removed from the executive and be free as a professional body, then they can deal with whoever they can deal with without fearing any consequences.
Yes.
We shall lessen corruption. But for as long as we look at these exotic artificial arrangements,
it's not going to work.
No, those are the things that are making corruption. It looks like it's not a crime, it's not theft. Corruption is not theft. So that the thief is taken to the police station and a corrupt official is taken to the